Today we'll be working on A Story of Survival by Maureen Ryan. Our strategy focus is skim and scan for dialogue. This is a new strategy we'll be working on. First, before you begin, you have to activate your brain like always. Think before you read. Ask yourself, what does the word survive mean? The word survive means to continue to live in spite of danger or hardship or challenge. What are some challenges people face? What could the character have to survive in the story? So maybe pause it, take a moment to think about that right now. Now, this strategy we've used already. It's the think aloud strategy. We're going to use it again. When you're reading, you remember to use the words I think, I know, I wonder. You must have at least 2 think alouds for each slide. We're going to also combine it with our questioning strategy. Here are some starters. We've used them before. I personally like the first 2. How would you describe and what can you say about? But remember, you could also use the rest of them or simply use who, what, where, why, when, how, sentence starters, right? So now we're going to use our new strategy. It's called scanning for dialogue. Scanning is just looking or zooming in on something. Dialogue is just when someone is speaking. Think about an X-ray machine, how it scans in or zooms in on the injury. Usually, it's not looking at the whole body, it's looking at one single spot if you're having a problem. So that's what we're going to practice doing today, rereading just to search for the people talking. Okay, so here are the directions. Step 1 is to first read the entire story. Then you will go back to the beginning. We've been doing short stories, so it really works to read an entire story and come back again. If you're in English class and you read a chapter the day before, and your teacher says, okay, what happened yesterday in the chapter? If it has characters in it, go back and check for dialogue. Mostly in English, right, we're reading fiction pieces, so it's very easy to use the dialogue to understand what's happening. So first you'd read the entire story or that entire chapter, and then you would go back to the beginning. Then for the second time reading, you're only going to reread a small chunk of it or the one page. You will just skim through the reading and just look just for the dialogue, just for someone speaking. On our slides, we will rewrite the dialogue in the text box. That's step 4. You will describe what the dialogue tells us about the story and then continue reading, just looking for dialogue. Again, read one time, then on your second reading, you're looking for that dialogue to analyze or look further into. So I'm going to show you how to do this. We've already done this story together. So I'm going to show you how to do this strategy in a story we know. Here we go. I'm going to read this first page again just to refresh your memory. I was the driver, victim of a drunk driver. Press Narvaez's truck was stopped at a red light. Suddenly, it was struck by a drunk driver. At 17, Press was seriously injured. His girlfriend, Cheryl, was killed. The evening of April 19, 1996 began as a regular Saturday night. I was a senior in high school. I was out on a date with my girlfriend. Cheryl and I had only been together a few months. She was a wonderful person. She could light up any room with her energy and humor. That night was her last night alive. We were heading home from the movies. We stopped at a red light. A cop pulled up next to my truck. Cheryl joked about how we'd better be careful. So reading that page, I'm going to get out of present mode so I can type. And I'm going to write in what I'm thinking. So I'm going to do my strategies I already know first. Then I'll go back and do my dialogue. So what I'm going to write for my think aloud is, as I was reading, I was wondering if the drunk driver got hurt. So I'm going to write that. Then I have another think aloud idea. Now you can go to question first and then go back to think aloud, or do either way works. You don't have to start with that. Then I wrote or thought, I know that Press is injured and that Cheryl died. Okay, now when I think about my questions, what 2 questions do I have? I wrote, how would you describe the night before the accident? So how would you describe the night? I'm going to say just before. These are short notes. I don't have to write very complete sentences. And then I also was thinking, what can you say about their relationship? Now, I could have not read the whole page and stopped and did my think aloud and my questioning as I went along, and that works too. Some of us like to read shorter sections and then take our notes. Now we're going to talk about dialogue. So now I'm going to skim and scan and just look for dialogue. I read the page already. I did my think aloud. I did my questioning. Now I'm going to reread simply for dialogue. So as I scan through my eyes, just look for those quotation marks. And there's only one piece on this page. It says, be careful. So I'm going to just read around it to see who is speaking. So I write this down, better be careful. Now I'm going to read around. So Cheryl joked about how we'd better be careful. So what does this dialogue tell me about this part of the story? What does it remind me of? It reminds me of that the night was light, the mood was light, they were having a good time. So I'm going to write that. I'm going to say they both were having a good time and joking. So that's how you do it. Read the page first, do your think aloud, do your questioning, and then go back, reread, find a piece of dialogue, and then write what that dialogue was about during that time. Like, what does that dialogue remind you of the story? What was happening at the time? So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the next slide. And the next slide is going to be the new story. Our new story has to do with a story of survival. That's why we were thinking about what the word survive means and what challenges he might face. When you look at the cover picture, it's kind of misleading because it seems like he's very happy and what could have possibly happened to him. Then we realize it's a story of survival. So he has survived something. So start this activity. If you have any questions, you know where to reach me, and thank you for watching.